All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to the 100th episode of D&D Did a Deep Dive, the show where we dive deep into classes, subclasses, and other features of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons to help you get the most out of your choices. And my mic is being weird right now, and it's annoying the hell out of me. All right, sorry. So today, um, I did a poll a while back, and I asked you good guys what you wanted me to do for my 100th episode, and it actually was tied. One thing was adding non D&D bits to D&D, which is what my 99th episode was, and the other one was what I called Fix RPG Horror Stories, which is basically where I take a story from r/RPG horror stories and talk about ways that things could have gone did it differently to avoid it becoming a horror story. Now, I've been reading RPG horror stories for a while. And to make things easier on me, I am not going to do this like Crit Crab or r/, where they like read the whole story and then comment on it. No. With the stutter and everything, that would just not be fun for me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to summarize it, and I will have a link in the description for you to actually read the story yourself if you want the full context. And then I'm going to specifically talk about warning signs and the things like that a horror story is coming that were obvious in here. And the things that could have been done differently to fix the situation. Yeah. So I actually have two horror stories brought up. Depending on how long this goes, I don't want this to be as long as my last video, especially since I'm still incredibly sick. I got, for lack of a better term, I got something equivalent to food poisoning that was spurred on by my anxiety almost a week ago, and I have not been able to eat anything but saltines and white bread for almost a week now. So I'm really not feeling well, so I'm going to try and keep this on the short side so I don't tire myself out. All right, so the first story we're going to talk about is called Salty Barbarian. Again, it's from r/RPG Horror Stories, and it's posted by the original poster, otherwise known as OP, is u/Orgnid. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that, but it's an interesting name. I hope it's not anything naughty, and if it is, ignore that I said it. The basics of this is OP is the DM of this campaign, and he has a problem player in it that he calls Jeb. To give an example of the problem player, OP and Jeb actually play at another table where Jeb is playing a first level high elf wizard who rolled an 18, 18, 18, 16, 15, and 8 for their stats. If anyone is not aware, 18 is the highest you can roll. The way that stat rolling works in D&D 5th edition, if you've never done it, is you roll 4d6 and you throw out the lowest one. And then you add the other 3 together, and you do that 6 times, and those are your stats, and you can put them wherever you want. At least that's how they do it in 5th edition. Earlier editions, sometimes you would roll it in order. There's a bunch of different ways, but that's the generally accepted practice. 18 is the highest you can possibly roll on 3d6 because again you roll 4 but you throw away the lowest as a way to kind of prevent someone having to play with a character that has like a 3 in an ability score because that would just handicap the character completely and would make them depending on the stat that they put it in would make it almost unplayable. So they use 4d4 drop the or 4d6 drop the lowest as a kind of buffer. So the statistical likelihood of rolling an 18 on the 3d6, I believe is like 4% or something like that. Like it's a really, really tiny number. The statistical likelihood of rolling 3 18s, a 16, and a 15 on 4d6 drop the lowest is infinitesimally small. You're looking at winning, $100,000 or more in the lottery, kind of small. It's obvious the reason that OP gives us that thing is first of all to kind of show what kind of player this is. He fudges his rolls. He likes to be overpowered and be the power player. That is a really, really common thing to find, especially if you do DMing like I used to do, where you did DM for conventions and the things like that, where you don't actually get to like vet or choose your players. They just kind of show up at your table because they signed up for your event. I've dealt with tons of power players, both in convention settings and at game stores, and also in my own campaigns. I've had players that have kind of flirted with power gaming and things like that. So I'm very familiar with it. However, as soon as you identify a power gamer that is a toxic version of a power gamer, like there's kind of two different versions of power gamers. There are people that they get enjoyment by figuring out how to maximize their characters' abilities. I don't really see that as a very toxic thing. That is how they have fun, is figuring out how the system works and then maximizing the usefulness of the system for them. That is just a play style, and it can actually fit into a regular campaign with no issues. You just have to understand that that's how the player plays, and that's how they view the game, and present them appropriate challenges. Now, the toxic version is someone that just likes to be likes a power fantasy. Someone that just really, really wants to be the most powerful person, to be the most important person. They want attention. They want to be able to influence the world and be very, very powerful and be able to make other people cower around them. That is a toxic power player. They do not fit well into good groups, and they react very, very poorly when things don't go their way. I'll give you two guesses as to what Jeb becomes. Now, the other reason he mentions the stats there is to explain why he only uses stat buying, or point buying is another way to refer to it. That's another system you can use to generate stats, and instead of rolling and having to hope that the dice are nice to you, you actually have all your stats start at a certain number. In 5th edition, it's 10. In 3rd edition, they had two different versions where you could start at 10 or you could start at 8. And then you have a number of points that you can allocate to different stats. And higher stats generally are going to cost more. Like going from a 10 to 11 will take 1 point. 11 to 12 will take 1. 12 to 13 will take 1. 13 to 14 will take 1. But 14 to 15 will take 2 stat points. Things like that. I don't remember the exact formulas for 5th edition, but I believe that's where the breakdown is. So the advantage of point buy systems, or I just use what's called the standard array, which is based on the point buy, it just gives you, it just gives you 6 stats instead of having you buy things, and it's just easier. But yeah, the nice thing about point buy is it's effectively impossible to cheat at point buy. Unless you break a rule somehow and the DM doesn't notice it, you can't really cheat. It's just math. So that is a really really good way to deal with someone that likes to fudge die rolls and things like that for character creation. Is go, you know what? We're just going to have everyone use point buy. It means that everyone's going to be on a level playing field, and it helps the whole party. To be honest, like I said, when I create characters myself, I always use this as a standard array because I roll very, very poorly. And so I like this as a standard array. It gives me a strong stat. It gives me a weak stat. It gives me a few in between. So it makes for a fun character to play. So that's the first thing you can do is if you have someone that's trying to power game, taking away some of the things that are easily abusable can be very, very useful in doing that. Now, the one thing I have to mention about this is this needs to be done at the beginning of the campaign, because if you start taking away tools that you have already given them, that changes the dynamic very, very quickly from I'm doing this to, if you do it before the campaign, it's all, I'm doing this to safeguard the campaign, make sure everyone's having fun. If you do it after the campaign is started and they've already been kind of exploiting these systems, the toxic power gamer is going to view it as I'm punishing you for being too good. And it creates this very adversarial situation. So in specific instances like that, if you do get to the point where you didn't realize there was a problem and now they're exploiting it, the absolute best thing you can do is sit everybody down at the same time when you're not in the middle of a game, but go, hey, everyone, I want to have a conversation after the game or before the game, or on a day that everyone can just get together for coffee or something, or in times like this where everyone can get together for Zoom coffee, and just go, hey, this has been happening, and I know I didn't, I didn't stop it before, but I just think, it's making it very difficult for me to be able to challenge you guys because of this particular thing. So if everyone's okay with it, I would like us to just say that this is not going to happen anymore. We're going to change this system. I know it's going to put you guys in a bad situation, but I'll let you rebuild your characters and make it so that everybody's within the same rules. And generally, the only person that's going to have an issue with it is going to be your toxic power gamer. But not dealing with it is just going to end in a horror story. So the best thing to do is explain your reasoning, get everyone together, make sure you're not singling out anyone as much as you can, and try and make the emphasis on, hey, I want everybody to have fun. All right, so we haven't even gotten into the problem, and we already have stuff that are like, you know what, this could have been fixed earlier. So in this particular campaign that OP is running, Jeb is playing a half-orc barbarian. The campaign setting itself is low magic to the point where if you do use anything other than divine magic in public, people freak out. Interesting kind of setting. It's not incredibly uncommon, and it provides for a lot of interesting role-playing opportunities where magic is still kind of taboo. I like that. It makes this a sense. The city that they're in is segregated by race. Again, a very common trope, though nowadays it's becoming less and less common with everything that's going on. And the reason I'm going to bring this up is specifically because it's going to kind of feed into the problems here. segregation and racism and the things like that. I do not believe those are things that you cannot explore in an RPG. However, if you do choose to explore things like segregation, racism, slavery, all these things that happen in the real world and have affected people profoundly, understand that people are going to have profound reactions to it, and you should be prepared to have conversations about it. You should be having conversations with your players saying, hey, listen, these are some of the subjects that I want to discuss. And some of the things that your characters, I would like to have them, to deal with. Are you guys okay with that? Are there certain things that you would prefer not to deal with? Because again, those very, very touchy subjects are really, really interesting as far as storytelling goes, to see kind of the horrors of these things, like especially if you personally have never been affected by any of those things. Having a character have to deal with it can be a very life-changing experience, and can open your eyes to things that you were not aware of. On that same realm, if you as the DM do not have experience with those things, and portray them wrong, use tropes that are incorrect or outright just lies and things like that, you are going to do damage to your players. So anytime you're dealing with stuff like that, do your research, talk to your players, and make sure everyone is on the same page. So it's a segregated city. The humans are the majority, so they rule. All the other races live in slums, in segregated areas of the slums. Again, not uncommon. Dragon Age, Dragon Age 2 specifically had that kind of segregation for the elves. In Dragon Age in general, elves are kind of considered lower class citizens. So again, it's not an uncommon thing. So they're looking for a key NPC, and so they're talking to people. They eventually to talk to a guard, and they're rolling really poorly, so they're just not getting any information. Now, Jeb is a conflict-causing player just in general. He's that kind of toxic power gamer. He always wants everything to be about him. He's not getting the answers that he wants, so he decided he wanted to pee on the guard. This is another kind of really big kind of warning sign that bad things are going to happen. If you have a player that wants to disrupt your game, some people really, really enjoy that. Some very, very good role players like throwing monkey wrenches into the DM's plans, because it forces the DM to think on their feet, and it can be a lot of fun for the DM, and it can be a lot of fun for the players. I would recommend, if you want to be a kind of chaos-causing player, you should know your DM pretty well, or have an agreement that, hey, I'm going to be doing things to kind of buck your stories and lines to, keep everybody on their feet. Because if a DM doesn't like doing that, you're going to just piss off your DM, and that's a bad idea. However, there's a difference between, throwing monkey wrenches in and then just doing things that are just inappropriate. And urinating on another character, there is not a society where that is considered a rational thing to do. Even in some societies where it is an insult to do that, it is still considered a very kind of base, disgusting insult. And everywhere else, in most polite society, it's just not okay to pee on someone. So not only is this character doing something to cause chaos, but he's doing something extremely inappropriate to do it. So at that point, he's not just trying to cause chaos, he's trying to cause the most chaos possible by making everyone look at him and give him all the attention possible. It's the same thing as a temper tantrum for a toddler, where they will just do the most outlandish thing they possibly can because they want attention. And they will do things that just don't make sense, like screaming their heads off or holding their breath or lying on the ground and hitting things or breaking the things. Whatever is going to give them the most attention, and generally things that are not acceptable are going to give them the most attention. So as soon as you see that, if I was to have a player in one of my campaigns go, I'm going to pee on him, I would go, I'm so sorry? Because that's the first and probably the most useful thing you can do as a DM when you have a player doing something unsuspected is just take a moment and acknowledge the fact that what they're doing is not normal. And it's simple enough to just go, I'm sorry, or something along those lines of, excuse me, what did you say? Force them to say it again. Simply for them to understand that what you have just said is not something that should have happened in this situation. So it's just excuse me, I'm sorry. What did you say you want to do? I want to pee on him. Okay. Let me understand exactly what it is you are telling me. And again, this is another one of my favorite phrases. And I don't just use this for problem players. I use this a lot when players maybe haven't taken the entire situation to heart, and they decide to make a decision that is obviously going to end poorly for them. So I will restate what they are saying and put it in the appropriate context. Something like if a player of mine, they're dealing with some guards, and they're like, you know what, I'm getting sick of this. I'm gonna hit the guard. I go, I'm sorry. I'm gonna hit the guard. Okay, just so I understand what's going on here. In the middle of a city with hundreds of guards, you are going to attack a member of their law enforcement, which is a crime. In a relatively public place where there's tons of witnesses who could go and find more guards. That's what you want to do. And sometimes the player will go, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. And I go, okay, go ahead and roll for your attack. And it happens exactly as I did to describe it. Okay, you hit the guard. The other guard attacks you. He screams to get for more guards. Before you can kill them, you have 40 guards surrounding you. Shooting to kill because you've just attacked and possibly murdered a guard. And sometimes that's what they want. They want to be put into a situation where they're massively at a disadvantage. Some people really enjoy that. But that just those two quick things of, I'm sorry. Okay, let me make sure I understand what you want to do. In the middle of this conversation with your entire party there and the guard there, you are going to unzip, pull your pants down, bring out that, and you're going to urinate on the guard who is armed in front of you. Yeah. Okay. As you start pulling down your pants, he says, what the hell are you doing? And then as you pull it out, he takes the butt of his spear and plants it swiftly between your little legs and knocks you down. He rolls, well, since your hands are full, I'm going to give him an advantage. Yeah, you take the hit. I need you to roll a Constitution saving throw with a disadvantage. Something as just as simple as that, because, and this is the other thing that I highly recommend, is just because you're in a fantasy setting doesn't mean inappropriate things don't cause, people don't react to inappropriate things. This is something that people that only play video games will sometimes forget that the characters they're dealing with are not programmed with a set number of responses to a set number of stimulus. These are real people, effectively, and so the best thing to do in a situation where they're doing something completely inappropriate is look at the entire situation and think, if you were to go up to a cop, argue with them, then pull your pants down and try to start urinating on the cop. First things first, spreading bodily fluids like that is a crime. And it can be a very, very bad crime, like felony level, depending on which bodily fluid you're spewing. And cops don't want to be peed on. They just don't. So if they see something happening, they're going to do something to stop it. Now, in a medieval society, there's not quite as many rules against violence against civilians as there are in our more modern, righteous society. And I know exactly what you're all about to type. This is not the place to have that conversation. So yeah, if someone was going to pee on him, the guard would immediately fight back. That's not what happens here, so let's continue doing. So if effectively what happens, the rest of the party pieces out. They go, we're not with him, do whatever you want. And the guard blows his whistle and gets a bunch of other guards, and they chase him down. He gets knocked prone, and they put a spear to Jeb gets knocked prone. They put a spear to his neck, the druid of the party comes over, smooths things out. He doesn't go into the details exactly how he smooths it out, but he smooths out, rolls really, really well, and gets them to not arrest or kill Jeb. However, they decide, the guards decide that eye for an eye. There's like 6 guards on him now, so they're all just going to pee on Jeb. That is another mistake here that probably accelerated the horror story. Again, what the person did was toxic and bad. However, it was inappropriate for him to attempt to pee on the guard. It's even more inappropriate for the people in power and the people with authority to decide to pee on him. Like, again, that is not an acceptable punishment in any society. It's just not okay. And so this is fine. This is what I call the DM punishment. You did something wrong, so I'm going to punish you. You don't want to be that kind of DM. Your role as a DM is not to be as much as people may claim that the DM is God. You're not God. You're not God. You're not any of the gods. You are the person that is telling the story. But you're not making. You create the situations. The players themselves actually write the story, and you just fill in the little details that they are not personally writing. You are not God. You do not get to punish the players for their misdeeds. That is for the world to do, and you should allow the world to react accordingly to the players. But it's never the DM's job to actively go out and punish their players. Let the guard punish, because that's what the guard are supposed to do. Or let let the prince or the big bad guy. Those are actual people with motivations and things like that, and they will want to exact revenge and things like that. But don't, as the DM, never punish your players. It's not your job, and it just creates resentment between the players and you. Surprisingly enough, Jeb did not like it. The rest of the group laughed. Another thing that's not great is when you make one of the players the butt of the joke, and everyone else in the party laughs at them. That creates more tension. It creates more division in the party. Again, this whole punishment of the thing is not good. Again, Jeb is a toxic player. He's already a problem. This is things that have made the problem already worse and will lead to more bad things happening. The best thing to do is I had a player that went in and decided because he was in a video game mindset, he would just start breaking things in a shop to try and intimidate the shopkeeper into giving them information. The shopkeeper called the guards. The rest of the party was able to kind of negotiate it down, but effectively what I did, because it made sense, they convinced the shopkeeper to not press charges, and effectively the problem player was not allowed to be armed while within city limits. They had to give their weapons to someone else, and they would always have a guard following them wherever they went, for at least the rest of the time they were in that little town, because they couldn't be trusted. And that was fine. I didn't punish the player for doing something horrible. I reacted the way it would. This person broke the law. He wasn't going to be charged with any crimes because nobody actually, did any the thing about it. But law enforcement is not going to just sit back and go, okay, we'll just wait until you break another law. Hopefully it won't be worse this time. No, they're going to take preventive measures. And having someone who is violent not be allowed to carry a weapon makes perfect sense. And it didn't really hurt the game because there was no combat and kick counters in that town. So it didn't really hurt the player at all. It was a role-playing solution. And it effectively meant that that player couldn't really interact when they were doing role-playing with people inside shops, because he wasn't allowed inside shops. So again, it wasn't that I was punishing the player. The guards were punishing him for doing something illegal. So yeah, that was probably not great. Going forward, they fast forward a couple sessions. A couple members re-rolled their characters because they didn't like the characters they started them. The next thing is the party had a cleric, but the cleric just really wasn't enjoying being a cleric, didn't like the class. So he decided to roll into a paladin, and to avoid him making a new character, they basically just had their god kind of give him a new calling. Rerolled a few of his stats and rearranged a few things so that the new paladin would work. Because stat-wise, clerics and paladins are very, very different. And that's all it was. But the player that happened to didn't tell the rest of the party. It was a one-on-one thing, and they were going to reveal it while they were playing, that he went from cleric to paladin, which I think is kind of cool. And I'm not against someone re-rolling a character if they don't like the one they're playing. Go with them. Jeb had an issue with this. Now, Jeb already had re-rolled his character because he started as a human fighter with the polearm mastery feat, which is a very, very common feat that is abused by power gamers. I won't go into why, but I saw it so many times in the Adventurers League. So it doesn't surprise me, but he decided to switch to half-orc barbarian because that one's even more exploitable. So yeah, but Jeb did not enjoy the fact that this cleric was now a paladin, and he found out in kind of a interesting way. Again, Jeb decided that he wanted to cause chaos, so he decided to walk in nude to a situation and start arguing with the cleric. Now, the cleric and Jeb had butt heads a lot, so it wasn't uncommon. But again, we have this issue again with him doing things that are simply just not appropriate. And this is another time when you can go, I'm sorry, what did you say? I'm going to walk in a nude. All right, you're going to walk into a crowded tavern within earshot of the guards. Probably has one or two off-duty guards in the tavern. Nude, which is a crime in this city. That's what you want to do. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Okay. As soon as you could come in, the proprietor tells you to go back up the stairs because it's not appropriate. And if he stays, fine. The two off-duty guards get up. One of them blows his whistle to get ones that are actually on to duty, and they arrest you. Again, it's a very, very simple thing. Now, he doesn't specifically say that it was a crowded tavern. It might have just been a small room where it was only the cleric and that. But as an example, use the world around you to stop bad behaviors. You shouldn't be punishing the player as the DM, going, I am the DM, I shall punish you. No, let the world do that because they're doing things that are not okay in the world. So whatever, he decides to walk in nude and start issues. The paladin demands that he gets dressed and settle down. And Jeb attempts to grapple and pin him. Now, again, Jeb thinks this is a cleric. He's not a cleric. He's a paladin now. And so Jeb rolls a 17. The paladin rolls an 18 contested athletics check. He isn't able to pin him. Jeb freaks out again. It's not fair. Cleric shouldn't be able to resist my 17. It's like, well, he rolled an 18. Well, no, the cleric shouldn't be able to resist it. I rolled a 17. Doesn't matter. He rolled an 18. He rolled higher than you. So Jeb is getting very, very upset about this. And he did another thing that's very common with toxic players. He mocked the whole ordeal and pouted is the exact words the OP uses. And this is something that I had in one of my first campaigns. Anytime this guy would roll poorly or something wouldn't go his way, he would get up. He liked to throw things, which, because it was hosted in my apartment, really bothered me because I don't think he ever caused like significant damage to my apartment, but I was always worried that he was going to make me lose my deposit on the department because he would just throw random shit around, which was not okay. This is an incredibly common thing for the toxic power player. When they don't get their own way, they're like, it's not fair. Fair is their favorite thing to use. This is not fair. Fair only applies to them. This is another warning sign. If you have a player that when things don't go their way, they go, it's not fair, and they get angry, you want to treat that character with or treat that player with kid gloves. Maybe have a conversation with them out to the side. Now, there are times in D&D where things are not fair. Dice can screw you. That's not fair. So don't think anytime anyone uses the phrase, well, that's not fair, that it somehow means they're a toxic player. No. However, someone that anytime something bad happens to them is always not fair, they're a toxic player. At that point, the cleric / paladin tells it, oh, my God gave me a higher calling, blah, blah, blah. I'm a paladin now. Jeb was not having it. He was really, really upset. Tensions were high. The party random encountered an owlbear, and Jeb was not the most powerful person on the board anymore. Barbarians do a lot of damage, especially half-orc barbarians, because barbarians, as they get to higher levels, get this thing where anytime they could crit, they get to roll additional crit damage dice. Half-orcs have a ratio feature that allow them to roll an additional damage die when they could crit. So half-orc barbarians do a lot of damage when they could crit. And when you're using something like I can't remember what it's called right now. But barbarians have this ability that allows them to roll all of their attacks with advantage, but everybody else gets advantage against them until the start of their next turn. And I can't remember a reckless attack. If you're using reckless attack, you're going to be critting a lot more often than other players because you're always rolling twice. So yeah, he's probably very used. It's why he chose a half-orc barbarian. He wanted to be doing the most damage. And paladins with smiting and things like that can go toe to toe with a barbarian easily, and especially if a paladin gets to smite crit, they can outclass a barbarian pretty quick, depending on how you build a paladin. So he's getting more and more upset because he's not doing all the damage, and he quits. And when he quit, the druid quit as well, because they were both really good for friends. And that's really where this story ends. The OP mentions that, yeah, a while later he messaged me on Steam and said he really missed playing D&D with me, and I blocked him. Or he didn't block him. He said flat out ignored it. But the basics of this story are you have a toxic power player that is trying to cause chaos and make the entire game about him. The best ways to do this are, first things first, notice the toxic power player as quickly as possible. In general, if you've been DMing along to the time, you're going to notice it pretty quickly. If you see, if they rolled their stats and the stats don't make sense, where they're just too high, or they only have one bad stat and all the rest are really good, you can put a little mental note of, maybe I need to watch this person. I have a player in one of my games that rolled exceptionally high for their stats. And all I had to do was go, hey, I was looking at your stats. They're really, really high. Yeah, man, I know. It was crazy. I've never rolled that high before. I'm like, okay. I've looked at everyone else's stats in the game, and you are the most powerful player in almost every attribute. Yeah, I know the rolls are really high. Well, would you mind? Now, I'm not. And this player, I know him personally. Did not cheat. He rolled really, really well. He used a different rolling method than I'm used to, that I will have to clarify if I ever run another game with him, that I don't allow that particular rolling method. But it's an accepted method in some circles, so I'm not going to punish him for it. But I said, hey, would you mind? Can we just turn, because he had two 20s at an 18, and it was really, really high. And he was a level 5 character with two 20s and an 18 and a bunch of other really high ones. I don't think he had anything under a 10, or he might have had one under to 10. But he just rolled well. And so I said, hey, would you mind? Can we just lower one of your 20s to a 16? I don't want to punish you for rolling high, because I don't think that's fair. But I want everyone else to feel like they're going to be able to do things as well. And with your stats so high compared to everybody else's, I don't think, I think it's going to create some animosity. And that's all it took. He just said, you know what, that makes perfect sense. I'm fine with that, because he's a good person, and he wanted to have fun with this group. He just rolled really high. So that's the first thing, is clock your power players earlier and make adjustments that you can before things happen. If you think players are going to be abusing the dice rolls, don't let them use the dice rolls. That is by far the most abusable aspect of character creation, is rolling your stats. Something that's extremely common that you don't have to worry about imposing if you think someone might be cheating, is someone has to observe the rolls happen. This goes all the way back to like old school original Dungeons and Dragons. If you rolled a character, the DM themselves had to watch you roll to ensure that you weren't cheating. It has precedence. So if you are worried that people are going to do that, all you have to do is go, hey, you know what? If you run a roll your stats, the only rule I have is I have to observe them rolling. And that will generally take away any chance of cheating. If you don't want to deal with that, or being able to observe the rolls is hard, like what we're dealing with now, then yeah, limit it to point buy or the standard array. Some people don't like that because they like the randomness. They like building a character based off of what luck gave them. But again, it does take out a lot of opportunities to create headaches and to create unfairness, even without cheating. Like I said, I have a player that just rolled really well, and because of that, and because the other players didn't roll as well, he was going to breed division in the group, because there's going to be players that are like, it's not fair. I have this cool character and I want to succeed, but anytime I try to do something, his character is always there and always better at the things that I should be the best at. So that's the first thing. Second, when the toxic player tries to make the game about themselves, go ahead and let the game be about him for that, or him or her, because it is not purely a male problem or a masculine problem. Let the game be all about them for that particular moment, and let the world correct itself. If you have someone that's exposing themselves in public, they get sent to jail for that. They get put on lists for that. And if you don't think in a medieval society that the guards did not have lists where they go, by the way, watch out for this person, he likes to cause trouble, you are just woefully uninformed. Yes, anytime you have people enacting law enforcement, they're going to share, okay, these are the problem people, because law enforcement cannot be entirely reactionary. They have to be proactive in their attempts, or lots of bad things does happen. So if someone wants to do something very, very bad and inappropriate, let the world react to the inappropriateness the way it should be. If someone's going to expose themselves and urinate on another character, they get into trouble for that. That's how, despite the fact that urine is a sterile fluid, sharing bodily fluids and the things like that is a great way to cause sickness and disease. And in a medieval society, because it is full of ammonia and it stinks really bad, they probably wouldn't have thought of it as sterile. So you can basically treat that person as someone that's trying to spread, spread disease or the things like that, and act appropriately. So that's the first way this could have been done. Is the guards shouldn't have peed on him, because that's not okay. What the guards should have done is punished him up appropriately. And if they did roleplay, the druid did roleplay really, really well to get him off the hook, then the guard should have said, fine, if he does anything else in this town, you are getting arrested in addition. We are releasing him to your care. Anything he does, it is your fault now. And that will give that player a reason to rein in their friend, because there's a chance they could lose their character in addition to him losing his. So that should have happened there. Next off, as a problem player becomes more of a problem, another thing that should be happening is, after that incident where he did something inappropriate, after the session is done, there should be a conversation between the DM and the player. Hey, Jeb, what you did is not cool. I understand that that's what your character decided they were going to do, but it made me extremely uncomfortable, and I don't want that kind of stuff in my games. So I'd really prefer it if you want, if you're getting upset with a guard or something like that, you can yell at him. If you want to start a fight or something like that would totally be in character. But just pulling yourself out and urinating on someone, it's not okay. And I have to say that I'm not going to allow that again. Okay. Setting up boundaries is an extremely healthy thing to do in any sort of relationship, whether it is romantic, whether it is platonic, whether it is familial, whether it is a business relationship. Setting up boundaries is an extremely healthy thing to do, and you should get used to doing it. I've seen so many people that will get extremely upset when a friend sets up a boundary that says, hey, I don't want this line to be crossed, because they go, well, we're friends. We shouldn't have boundaries. No, you should. Every single relationship, you should have boundaries. And they're extremely healthy. And if you do have people that are constantly pushing your boundaries or not respecting your boundaries, that's something that you need to discuss. It doesn't mean that they're bad people. They may just not understand that those boundaries are important to you. But you need to have boundaries. And so the DM player relationship should have boundaries as well. And so when you kind of put that down and said, this is a line we're not going to cross anymore. Be sure to mention, if you have things that I'm doing that you're really not okay with, let me know. Players are allowed to create boundaries just like the DMs are. So I go, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to allow that in my game. I don't enjoy that. It makes me extremely uncomfortable. I'm just not going to allow it in my game. P happens off camera. All right? Like every 50 sitcom, there may be a toilet. There may be a bathroom in the house, but no one is ever seen using it. Okay. If they push back, it's like, well, fine, then I'm going to say this boundary and this boundary and this boundary. Let them say, okay, well, this is the boundary I want, and this is the boundary I want. Okay. For this game to go forward, I can't, if they're doing things that are legitimate, go ahead and tell them, okay, that's fine. If you don't want these things, that's perfectly fine. I will mention it to the rest of the group that we're not going to have these particular things because you're not comfortable with them. That's perfectly fine. If they're making outlandish requests that are just, there to punish you for setting up boundaries, then go, okay, I can't run a game with those boundaries. So, since these are important to you, unfortunately, I don't think you can be in this game. I don't want to make you cross any boundaries that you don't want to. I don't believe that's an appropriate thing for me to ask you to do. So if these are important, I have to say you're going to have to find another to the table. And again, none of this is, you're a bad person, so I'm never letting you play in my table again. All of this is, I'm setting boundaries, you're setting boundaries. If you set boundaries that I cannot run a table, if I cannot run a game within your boundaries, then we can't play together. And if the other players don't have the same boundaries that you do, and I can play in a world within their boundaries, and I'm going to continue playing with them, and I'm not going to play with you, because I'm not going to force you to do things that cross lines that you don't want to cross. That's not okay. None of this is about punishing the player. All of this is going, okay, this is not uncomfortable for me, so this is the boundary I'm setting. If they could come back, well, this is not uncomfortable to me. Well, then if you're not comfortable with that, you don't have to play with us. In the same way that I don't have to play with you, if that's the only way that you can play is by peeing on everyone. It just means that we need to be in different groups, which is perfectly fine. There's tons of other good groups out there. You can probably find a group that's totally okay with you peeing on everyone. It's just not this good group. And because I'm the one that's, writing everything, and nobody else is having this issue with me making this boundary, then we're going to just keep playing, and you can find someone else to play with. Because again, I don't want you to cross any lines. It sounds petty. It's not. It's a very responsible way to do it. As long as you don't get petty about it, and that is extremely hard to do. It takes the patience of a saint. This is something I've learned over years and years and years, over a decade and a half of being in the leadership positions where I've been forced to have difficult conversations. And and it's not something that's ever pleasant. You just get good at it eventually from sheer repetition. So, yes. So that should have happened with this. They should have had a conversation. And then the final straw where, there's a little bit of PvP and he gets really, really upset. I think that was handled as well as it could have. You just kind of shut the player down. It's like, well, it's not fair that he got to do that. The dice said so. Don't blame me, but blame the dice. That's what was rolled on the dice. That's how it works. And then him, rage quitting effectively. That is as good as it's going to get. Again, things could have been dealt with much earlier to prevent the rage quit. However, this is technically a positive end to an RPG horror story because the campaign itself wasn't totaled. They just had to get some new players. I've heard other ones that get much worse and the campaign derails. People take it personally and people lose friendships over it. This is just a toxic player quits, and that's perfectly fine. As a DM, don't take it personally if a player quits on you. Don't hold it against the player either. Sometimes people just aren't compatible. Playstyles aren't compatible. Doesn't mean they're a bad person. Doesn't mean you're a bad person or a bad DM. Means you guys didn't mesh, and that's perfectly fine. In this particular instance, he needed to leave the group. That's all it was. Had things happened earlier to where the problems have been addressed earlier, those one-on-one conversations are essential to getting toxic players to stop being toxic. If you treat them like a rational human being, and you don't, first of all, don't call them toxic, and you don't treat them as this horrible bad person, but just go, hey, I understand this is what you will want to do. However, this is making me uncomfortable. Treat them like a regular human being. Don't treat them like they're trying to be a horrible person until they give you no other choice. Always go into a situation with the intention of, this is an actual life of a human being with real feelings and a real life that I know nothing about. I don't know what's going on right now. I don't know what problems they're having in their own life that they might be trying to deal with through role playing. And it's not my job to fix them. It's my job as a GM or a DM to run a fun game. So approach them as a human being, sit down, have a conversation, say, this isn't okay. I'm going to put this line in the sand here saying, no, we're not going to do this. And if you're not okay with that, if you can't play in a campaign like that, then we can't play together. And I'm very sorry about that. Doesn't mean any one of us is a horrible person. It means we can't play together because I can't do this, and you're telling me that you have to be able to do this in order to play. So thank you very much for being a part of the campaign, but I think we need to part ways. All right? So I did not mean this to be an hour, but it was. So that is, Salty Barbarian. This is one of the more tame ones. If you do browse r/rpg horror stories, understand there is some really, really dark stuff in here. I read through probably a dozen or so different stories before I found two that I thought were appropriate to talk about, because some of these get into really, really like content warning style stuff. Maybe someday I will deal with a touchy subject like that, but for my first one, I'm like, no, let's just deal with the toxic players. So, anyway, that is going to be all for me today. As always, if you enjoyed this, please hit the like button. In addition, subscribe to the channel. Like I said, I am extremely sick right now. And I am super, super proud for being able to hide it as long as I have, though it is starting to come back now. So this next week may be a little bit rocky. I may miss some video uploads, but hit the subscribe button so you know when they come back, and hit the notification, the bell icon, turn notifications on, because things may be weird. In the comments down below, let me know if you can think of another way to deal with this. This is salty barbarian. Just remember, calling them a horrible, disgusting person and attacking them, not gonna help this as a situation. Just makes things worse. So anything other than that, put it in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, that's all for me today, and I will see you guys next time. All right, bye bye.